when I'm dealing with showing property, I always tell people, my job is to get to know what you like. So I always need your feedback. Don't consider anything too small. What are you loving? What are you not loving? What makes sense? Could you see yourself here? Like, you ask those questions and they start to get used to the fact that this is not your property, right? Like, I'm not attached, right? This is your feedback is what I need, because there is a chance that someone like that, you're going to be helping them buy the property without them being here. Make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you definitely want to get those questions answered. All right, let's watch our video.
From Nashville, Tennessee. I've been with Keller Williams since 2006. 2014, we did about 200 transactions for about $60 million in volume. I grew up on a farm, so I've always seen my dad negotiating land and cows and horses. Being the youngest of four, I'm trading and negotiating with my brothers all growing up. So I've kind of done it all the time. Some people are certainly gravitate toward it and are naturally better at it than others. But I think that negotiation can definitely be learned. I think there's a lot of skills that go into being a great negotiator. I think it's learning your client. Instead of kind of assuming that you know what's important to them, really asking a lot of questions and letting them tell you what they need or want, and then speaking to the other agent and finding out what's most important to their client. And there's some agents that just don't give any. When I have an agent that I'm dealing with that's very tight-lipped, I just keep asking questions, and they give me information that they might not have otherwise given, whether it's a divorce or a death, or it's just they got relocated to some other city. And I think if you're really listening and being intentional and purposeful about listening, you'll find out exactly what's important to them or what they have to have. In certain situations, you have to be creative. We're always looking for that next little tip to help our clients out and win the deals. One of the techniques that we've used a lot that's worked well for us is the escalation clause. For example, if the property is listed at $250,000, we might go in at $250,000 with strong terms, and in special stipulations we might put in there that we're willing to beat the next best documented offer by $1,000 up to $263,000. And the best offer might be $261,000, so we end up getting it for $262,000. From a client standpoint, be willing to have a real conversation with your clients. It's not us just being realtors for them, it's us consulting and advising and really telling them, if you really want this property, here's what you have to do to get it. Everybody's got a different way of how they would negotiate. And networking with other Keller Williams agents around the country, the more you hear it, the more ideas you get. And then you end up gearing it towards you and what you think is going to work best for you and your clients. A lot of it comes down to experience, and I think the more deals you do, the more comfortable you get with it. If you can step back from every transaction and learn something, you're going to get really good over time.
Oh, wait, sorry. Over the part that he said when he was talking about the numbers, I was zoned out for a second.
Escalation?
And I was wishing I'd heard that, yeah.
You don't need to know about escalation.
Oh, okay.
Not here. You need to know a cursory understanding of it. We didn't see that scenario. It was common in like the Bay Area where things were just out of control and people were just offering. Whatever your highest is, you get also higher.
Yeah.
Yeah.
An
So,
escalation clause?
yeah, it
When I
happens.
lived in Virginia, yeah.
Oh, and my friend did it twice here. It feels like it's very competitive. Why-
Really? She did it here? That surprises me
Yeah.
because we don't see those here very often.
Oh, yeah, she ended up getting into two like that because one in Haiku and one in Kula.
Yeah, it's not that hard to do, so just, if you get to that point, just let me know and I'll walk you through it.
Okay, but that's what, he wasn't talking about, some kind of like a negotiation, but it didn't have to do with an offer, it just had to do with an escalation.
No, it was just an escalation clause. Got it. Yeah, we could, the next documented, the highest documented offer plus this amount of money. Yeah. So, yeah, I think you might see them more so when you're dealing with either, it'll happen in a high market when people are desperate. And it'll happen, I shouldn't say desperate, but like primary residence. That's why it's not as common here, because a lot of times if you're dealing with investors, they don't have to buy, right? Sometimes they do with a 1031, but it usually doesn't create that. but also sometimes you'll see that in investment properties that are really good price, and you'll have your cash buyers come in and be like, offer over, whatever. So it's become more common. It didn't used to happen. This is the first boom it really showed up in. You said you bought 2?
No, my husband and I lost out on a house because the other people had an escalation clause where they would be willing to pay more than we could.
Yeah, exactly.
But it was, our neighborhood was so cute. Everybody wanted to live in this neighborhood.
So they were willing.
It was like the house not in a Better Homes and Gardens magazine. Like, it was so cute.
Yeah, yeah. So that's all he was talking about was the escalation clause. But tell me what did you see in there that was your aha or surprised you?
Well, I found interesting for negotiating movie. The first topic was learning your client, and then listening. He was in bold.
Right.
So negotiating is, I would say, knowing what your client wants would give you confidence to negotiate. But
For
you
sure.
want to make sure you know.
Yeah, for sure.
Don't assume and let them tell you.
Exactly.
So rather than going, okay, I knew that they really liked this one better than this one, I could tell, don't just reinforce what you observed.
Right?
Still continue to ask questions so that they can hear it come out of your own mouth.
Perfect. Communication. It's all about communication. The more I understand their motivation piece, if I'm negotiating price, if I know if their price is their main negotiation piece, then I know that because I've asked them all those questions. Whereas if not as much the price, then I can go back to them. And remember, you're negotiating 2 different ways. You're negotiating with your client, and you're negotiating with the other agent. So you always have a 2-way negotiation going on. You understand that, right?
Yes.
I'm
brokering the.
Yeah, so sometimes, because what your clients will do, you guys have ever heard the, step over nickel, or step over dollars to get nickels? Like, people, it's the concept that I'm ignoring the big money to fight over little tiny things.
Oh,
Just
penny
to
rich,
have the fight.
pound foolish.
Yeah, that same kind of thing,
Yeah.
same kind of thing. So you have to clarify that for your clients a lot, like put it into a package that makes sense for them so they go, oh, you're right. Like, when it comes down to it, if you're fighting over a couple $1,000s and you're talking about a $500,000 transaction, you can call up the lender and go, hey, $2,000 difference, what's the difference in the payment? $1.25. Are you guys okay with $1.25 extra per month? Because that's literally what we're talking about at this point, right? So you have to break it down for them so they're clear, and then going, like, if it's your buyer saying, I don't have anything else to show you that you like, you've seen everything on the market, right? Like, this one you love, it took us a while to get you here, let's not lose it over $1.25 a month. Like, put it into those perspectives that they get, right? Make sense? Yeah. So just remember, you're always negotiating both ways. You're negotiating with the other agent and you're negotiating with your clients, right? And again, doing what's best for them and what they really want. And how do you know what they really want? How do you know that?
Because you've asked and they've told you.
Exactly. You kept asking questions. Clearer and clearer and clearer. So here's what I hear you saying, is this, this, and this. What I'm understanding is this, is that right? Yes, that's what I'm saying.
Is there
Or
more?
No, that's not. Is there more? Yeah, those kind of questions. Like we were just asking, what else? Like asking questions like, how does that make you feel? Like, if you were living in there, how would that make you feel? Right? If we had a conversation, me and the buyer had a conversation, and they walked me through, like, waking up on that balcony, drinking their coffee, watching the ocean, like, now we're not just talking about a couple $1,000 difference, we're talking about something a concept that you're in love with. Like, I want to get you there. Right? Make sense? Good. All right. Moving on. Okay. So, negotiating tips. So 12. You guys are going to help me read through these. So, Erin, if you don't mind starting, that would be awesome.
Keep the following tips in mind as you work towards mastery in negotiation. Above all else, be professional. Remember your goal, a signed contract.
Or a closed deal. Yes.
This is what you're driving toward, and it's what both agents and their clients have in mind. Control what you say to anyone involved in the transaction. If you create anxiety in your clients or other parties, you're reducing their leverage in negotiations.
That's true.
Continually refer back to motivation. Remind your client why they want to buy or sell and help them reevaluate their requests if they are becoming unreasonable. Don't reveal too much. Listen more than talk. Keep your client's motivation close to your chest. Don't be attached to the outcome. You'll do hundreds or thousands of transactions in your career, and there is no way you can get everything you and your clients want all the time. Don't let it affect your mindset if the deal doesn't go through or if your client doesn't act on your recommendation. Find a different win for your client.
Very important. What else? Any other tips you guys can come up with? I would say that the one tip I would add to this is remember that sometimes in negotiations, because we are not actually dealing with our money, it's easier for us to make larger jumps. It's not always easier for clients to make larger jumps. So there's nothing wrong with incremental coming together, right? So that was the other thing, like when we were talking about we were talking about the price. You could have said something like, if my clients are willing to come up a little bit and I put it in writing, would you present that to your clients? Not that I know that that's going to happen, but I'm just trying to work this out so that we can all win, right?
Even if they just said they're not taking anything less than
Absolutely. And here's the thing, in writing, that's another tip.
Yeah.
In writing sometimes gets a different reaction than a verbal. So just keep that in mind. Hi, Miss Deborah, how are you?
Hi, I'm good.
I'm so glad you came.
Thank you.
So yeah, those are the two things that I would definitely, is in writing can make a really big difference, so don't always take the verbal as the final. And that's the other thing.
Is there another one of these things?
Yep, I think so. Here. Even if it's the final, like, they're like, nope, sorry, not gonna happen.
Mm-hmm.
My client's rejecting your
You
offer.
still ask
Guess what?
this question.
It's not over,
Would you present?
right? My client is rejecting your offer.
It's never over.
I closed a property that we had a rejected offer on, and my client wasn't changing, and their client wasn't changing.
Because writing almost looks like a plea. Like, please consider it. That's all I can do.
I know, it's like something, right? So we just kept going back and forth in conversation, and we actually, my client did not budge on the price, they weren't gonna budge on the price, and we ended up getting a deal. Because we kept pointing out, you've been on the market for 4 years. This is
For
a
4 years?
4 years.
Oh.
off and on. You've been trying to find, and my buyer was going, I am losing money on a property right now in another state. I'm not gonna lose money on a property here. They can count on me on anything but not the dollars. And I was like, okay, so you're okay with totally losing it? And he goes, I don't care. He didn't even like it when it's his girlfriend. And I was like, are you sure you want it? And he's like, yeah, she gets what she wants. I'm like, okay, cool. But he was like, I will not budge on the price. So we just kept talking to the other agent and saying, look, you've been in and out of escrow twice. You've been listed for 4 years. If you want to sell it, I have a buyer that can close on this deal. Do we want to make it happen or not? And he worked his magic on his side, and we ended up closing a deal. So I never take no as a final no. I always say, what can we do? Like, how can we work together? What can we make happen, right?
Okay.
We all want to do this, so let's make it happen. So don't take a no as a no. All right, so common points of negotiation. So during the negotiation process, price and terms are common points of negotiation. So, do you mind reading today, Terry, or do you not want to? Okay, Miss Deborah, do you mind reading page 13 for us?
Certainly. Common points of negotiation. During the negotiation process, price and terms are common points of negotiation. Price. While the sales price is the primary factor in negotiations, it's not necessarily the bottom line. In a situation where a seller receives multiple offers at the same price, it's the terms of those offers, in addition to the buyer's financial position, that will determine which one wins. Number 2 is terms. The terms of an offer may be financial or time-based, or both. When the buyer and seller can't agree on a sales price, the following 5 offer terms come into play. Closing costs. Traditionally paid by the buyer, closing costs are in addition to the purchase price. Securing the cash to pay these expenses can be difficult for some. especially for the first-time home buyers. Therefore, the seller may be asked to pay a portion of the closing costs. When you represent a seller, make your client aware that it's common for buyers to ask for part of the closing costs to be covered by them and what their options are. The closing date. When a seller has a very specific time frame for moving, the buyer has the upper hand and can leverage this by being more flexible with the closing date and less flexible with the offer price. The third one is conveyances. While conveyances are defined by a locality's board of realtors, the general rule of thumb is that attached fixtures stay with the home and non-realty items, personal property, go with the seller. In negotiations, a buyer may request that certain personal property items stay with the home, such as furniture, window treatments, or a refrigerator. Another one is earnest money and option fee. It is in the seller's best interest for the buyer to put as much into escrow as possible as soon as possible. While a locality's board of realtors has a standard practice for when earnest money and option fee, where applicable, is deposited, the amount is often negotiated. Really. Next one is repairs. Most offers are contingent on the outcome of the home inspection and necessary repairs. Depending on the complexity of the repairs, buyers may ask the seller to make repairs prior to closing, subject to a follow-up inspection. Deduct the repair costs from the sales price or pay a lump sum at closing to cover the costs.
Awesome. I want to go through a couple of those things. So I already asked these ladies, Deborah, so I'm going to ask you, on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being, let's go 10 being you're such a great negotiator that the FBI wants to hire you as their rock star negotiator. 1 being I walk into the car dealership, I pay them exactly what they're asking, and I get all the additions because I don't want to say no. Where do you fall? Give me a number.
Where do I fall?
Then I'll tell you where they fell.
Probably 4.
Okay, 4. So
Yeah.
we have an 11.
Oh,
And
it is
you-
an 11.
2.
And a 2. Okay,
Okay.
so there you go. And I'm married to a 1. And I'm
Yeah, so
probably
am
like
I.
a 9.5. So,
Yeah,
you know,
I'm
there you
married
go.
to a 0. Yeah.
Couple things. So did you guys understand all of these things, first of all? Was there any of these where you went, I don't know what that is, or I
What is
don't
the
understand?
fee, earnest money and
Earnest
option
money?
fee? What's
Uh-huh.
option fee?
An option fee has to do with like a lease option. So that's that would be if you were dealing with a lease option.
Okay.
But we call it earnest money here. And people will always say, what's the earnest money percentage? You know, it's a negotiable amount. Generally, if it's like a condo under $500,000, I'll do about 10,000. It just depends, right? It's
Does the seller
negotiable.
ever say, I want this much earnest money to look at an offer?
They could.
Yeah.
I've never seen it. I mean, the bottom line is you have access to that money back anyway.
Yeah.
It also depends a lot on how your buyer is buying. If they're buying on a VA loan, they're not putting any money down. They may want to only put in $5,000. If it's a small condo, okay, not a problem. Now the thing is, they have rights to have all that back during their inspection periods, right? It's all fully protected.
Right.
And that's why you have to be clear with people at the point when their earnest money is now no longer protected, right? So like you'll hit a point where your inspections are going to be done, and the only thing protection is if you have a loan, right? That'll be, but they can't just say, well, I just decided I don't want the loan. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about if something were like, if we were to have a meltdown and suddenly the interest rates went to 12%, you can't qualify for that property anymore, right? Like that's the kind of loan thing we're talking about. Or like something happens before the closing table and you can't close, right? That's what we're talking about. But you could be, if you made the mistake, you could have an issue there with the liability. But just FYI, you want to be very clear. Like I let people know during the inspection period, I go, look, so tomorrow is the end of our J1. Now, if we've got all the documentation and everything else, we may be waiting on something that would be an outstanding. But basically, once we pass that point, this is that point we've been talking about, and I'm having conversations with them about their earnest money for a long time before that. And I'm saying this is that point we were talking about where we're all in, right? This is our date, we're going to be all in. What do you think? We good? Yeah, we love it. Okay, awesome, we're good. Now they know, like they're very clear on the timing. That's the one timing you want to make sure you are really clear on. So they understand that they can't, like 2 days after J1, be like, nope, I changed my mind. Well, you've had all the docs, you've signed all the disclosures, you can't just change your mind at that point.
But you can use the financing contingency.
No,
If you
If you just don't get the
qualify.
loan.
only, no, so if I just say I don't want to buy it, That's not using you cannot use the financing contingency that way. There has to be a reason you couldn't qualify for the financing. And if you sabotage your own financing, your money could be
Yeah.
at risk. I'm
But
just
up
saying,
until
just
that
be careful.
point,
But up until
they
that
can
point,
just
no
change
big
their
deal.
mind.
You could just say, and by the way, at that point, you could literally, you can just say, paperwork, we're out. You have to have no explanation as long as you're within your J1. We're in our inspection
Really?
period. We don't
Do
want to buy.
that? Okay.
Don't even have to have a reason.
Okay, so then above 500, you go to 20, or then you go?
Yeah, I mean, it
increments like
depends. It's kind of
10, 15, and 20?
Yeah, I mean, if it's, if you're getting into the millions, 50,000, 75,000, I mean, it's part of their down payment anyway.
Mhm.
It's applied to their down payment, so people are paying cash, just kind of look at it. If it, yeah, you'll start seeing kind of there's not a specific amount, it just depends on.
But they kind of go 10, 20, 50 based on.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, if I'm a
Something
VA
like
and he's
that.
just paying his closing fees, it'd be like, 5,000
Mhm.
on a condo, I mean, you just have to kind of look. I mean, some of these people are like, I don't have 5,000, I have $3,500. So you just let them know. I know that I would write a letter to when I was submitting the offer, and I would just say, hey, we're doing 3,500 because he's doing a VA loan. Great guy, just doesn't, have
Yeah.
a bunch of extra money to put in there. Just being straightforward with you, right? Like having conversations. See, that communication piece comes really into play. So I want to talk a little bit about conveyances in here. So did you guys understand the